Hey BookTube, Erin here. I want to share with you a reading update with my most recent reads and what I'm currently reading now. I love doing these videos because I get to capture my in the moment feelings about these books, and everything's so fresh and exciting. So I'm going to start off with Empire of Silence. This is one of my first epic sci-fis, and I don't know how I feel about it yet. I think a lot of the feedback that I heard about this book had me expecting that it would be more fast-paced than what it was, but this was definitely a slow burn, character driven narrative that's setting the foundation for a vast universe, which is totally fine and to be expected for the first book in a series. I just found a lot of the experience with our main character was just following him in a very transitory state. So I felt like the beginning and the end of this story made the most impact, while the middle, not necessarily so. I may continue on to book two, Howling in the Dark, but it's just not going to be a priority. And it's mostly because I'm not in love with our main character, Hadrian, and I just need something to kind of latch on to, a reason to continue. And I don't know that I found that in this book. But book two is promising to be a lot better, so I'm going to give it a chance, just not now. Next up is Bad Fruit by Ella King. This is about a generational trauma in a family when it comes to do with child abuse. So it's got some very heavy themes here, although it's not very graphic. So if that's a trigger point for you, go into this one carefully. I DNF'd this one last year, but it just stayed on my mind. And because it's so short, I just figured I'd go ahead and finish it and see what the story was about. I'll say this one didn't make a huge impact for me, but I still think that it was a well done story if you like kind of those genre bending stories that explore heavy themes. Next up is horror, which is my preferred genre, Books of Blood by Clive Barker. This is volume one. I loved most of the stories in this book. This is a short story collection. I have to say the last couple of stories weren't my favorite, and it was really hard to not judge the entire collection based on the last two stories that I read. But overall, as a whole, I really liked the speculative space that these stories come from. So I'm going to continue on to read more volumes. And it was surprisingly not as gory as I expected it to be, which was totally fine because it doesn't always need to be gory and graphic to be scary. So here are my current reads. So I finished Incidents Around the House on audiobook, and this was a really unique horror as it comes from the POV of a 6-year-old girl. The narrator does a fantastic job of embodying her voice without making it too annoying. I will say this one isn't scary to me per se, but it does have a lot of moments that I would have loved to see in a visual movie format. So if you like creepy moments looked at from the POV of a child and their innocence with some parents that leave a lot to be desired, then this is one you might like. I also finished the audiobook for book 2.5 in the Stormlight Archives series. This is Edgedancer by Brandon Sanderson, and I fell in love with Lift as a character. I will say that I'm just starting to get into reading those in between novellas of a main thread of a series. I would usually skip over those because I didn't think that they would have a lot to offer, but I was very wrong. I fell in love with this character and I looked forward to seeing her in book 3 that I'm reading now. And I can say that I appreciated her interactions, although limited in book 3, because I had a lot more color to add to that character from what I experienced in Edgedancer. So I think I love this, and I think I gave this one 5 stars. I'm currently reading Oathbringer by Brandon Sanderson. Each book just makes me fall in love with this series even more. And I admit I actually started the Stormlight Archive just to see if I could. I'd always been intimidated by stories that are this hefty because I was like, I felt like I wasn't going to be able to grasp it. Like it would be too complex, there would be too many characters, but the way that these stories are arranged really works for me. And I remember reading The Way of Kings and giving it the critique that I didn't like the way the book was sectioned into a group of character POVs, but I actually think that that's the reason that I can absorb so many character POVs is because they've been segmented in a way that makes sense. So Oathbringer has me in a chokehold. I'd say I'm about 60% into this one, and I hope to finish it this week. And I think I'm just before the part of the Sanderlanche. I'm on page 900, so I think the Sanderlanche is coming, so we'll see what happens. I'm also doing a buddy read with one of my good book friends over on TikTok, Moody Reader, and we're buddy reading Black Sun together, and we are both loving this so much. I think I was about halfway through this and I already knew that I was going to want to continue into the series, which kind of goes back to my point of what I was saying with the Empire of Silence. If there's something in the first book that's not making me look forward to continuing the story. That's why I'm not excited to do it, because I have experienced series where I've read book one or part of book one, and I'm just like, yo, I want to go deeper here. So this is how I'm feeling about this one. I'm absolutely eating this up. And for horror, I'm reading The Last Days by Adam Neville. I'm just a few pages into this one. I don't really have enough progress in it to make a solid opinion about it, but I have a lot of good expectations. I'm hearing great things about how dark and creepy this one is. So that's where I'm going to spend the next, I'd say, week and a half of working my way through these 3 books. And they're pretty hefty, so I think it's going to take me some time. So other than that, I would love to know what you've recently read, what was a favorite, and what you're looking forward to read this week.